Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon for this creative writing session. I am very grateful for you all having shown up today, and I'm really looking forward to this next hour together. What a lovely way to spend an otherwise pretty dreich day as it is up here in Glasgow. So I'll just start with a quick introduction to myself. My name is Imogen. I am a writer, poet, and theatre maker based here in rainy Glasgow. Um, I specialize in live performance, specifically performance poetry, and my main area of interest is creating long form, so approximately an hour spoken word theatre shows that I then mix with music to try to widen the accessibility of poetry in general as an art form. Obviously, live performance has been temporarily removed, temporarily postponed. So over this past year, I really had a lot of time to be able to delve back into the creative writing process that comes before the live shows, really nurturing that part of my craft and sharing my own knowledge and experience in settings such as this. And I think what has also been extremely beneficial lately is that, as we know, the world just now and this past year or so of our lives has been immensely stressful, uncertain, and anxiety inducing, quite frankly. So I've been able to rediscover the ways in which poetry and creative writing can be used as a means of mindfulness and personal expression, which is so helpful, really, when we're moving through these difficult times. I'm a very firm believer, I think, in writing being an honest, emotive tool to help us work through busy, cluttered minds and find stillness really within it. And so that kind of sentiment is going to form the basis of this session, a focus on exercises which encourage calmness or clear-headedness, I suppose. So for the next hour, all you will need is a means to write, so pen and paper like myself, or a computer, phone, whatever works best for you. And I will be working through a series of exercises with you in real time. So I'll be introducing each exercise, then giving you a set amount of time to complete the task at home. It will be quite, what's the word, kind of intensive in that there's not going to be too much time given to the exercises, because I prefer being able to introduce more techniques which you can then build upon in your own time and use to go forward and tell your own stories. So this is kind of an introductory session to various techniques that are helpful to me as a means to clear my mind and find some kind of stillness. Quite often in workshops, I will invite people to share the work that they've created after each exercise, but obviously it's never so easy on an online platform. So instead, I would just encourage you to use this session just completely for yourself, really, without judgment, without expectation. This is a workshop for all experience levels and should really just be an hour in your day that you're allocating to yourself and your creativity and your thoughts. And then if after the session you've got any writing that you've created that you'd like to send to me or receive feedback on, then I would really encourage you to do so. I love reading people's writing. You can contact me on any social media platform. I'm on them all. Or you can also email me at imogenstirlingpoetry@gmail.com, which I'll remind you of at the end of the session. But I think that's probably us for our introduction. So I'm ready. If you guys are ready too, then let's get started on our first exercise. So we're going to begin with an exercise called the 7 Eyes, which is actually an exercise that I just learned the other day when I did a workshop with a brilliant playwright called Megan Tyler. And it worked really nicely for me. It really resonated. So I'm excited to share it now. It's very much a sort of word vomit exercise, I suppose. It's great for starting sessions and warming up your brain. I will be giving you 7 short statements, which I'd like you to write down just now at the top of your page as sort of headers or titles. If you're ready, I will just read them to you now. These 7 statements are, firstly, I worry that. I worry that. I have learned. My heart feels. I think. I love. I hate. And I hope. So I'll just run through them again in case anybody missed them. So those are, I worry that. That's number 1. Number 2 is I have learned. Number 3, my heart feels. Number 4, I think. Number 5, I love. Number 6, I hate. And number 7, I hope. Lovely. So we're going to spend 1 minute on each of these headings. I have a timer here, so I'll keep you right. This exercise just basically requires spontaneous, quick thinking. So responding to the titles as simply, as quickly as you can with whatever comes into your mind. So, I might write, I love my new kitten that I got the other day. I love cups of tea. I hate the pandemic. I hate tomatoes. I don't know. Even if the words seem strange or you're not really sure where they came from, just get them down anyway. This is really an exercise for clearing all the murkiness out from your brain, for unearthing some things, some thoughts inevitably. And so it's very kind of mindful in this way. And it's nice, I find, because there's no pressure to generate content or particularly nice language. It's simply decluttering the mind. So if you guys are ready, we're going to start with heading number 1. I worry that. Got my timer at the ready. Okay. So I worry that. That's our minute starting now. Okay, that's minute number 1 up. We're moving on now to I have learned. I have learned. Minute starting now. Okay, that's our time up. We're moving on now to statement number 3. My heart feels. This is the one that isn't really appropriate for the 7 Eyes title. It's sort of upsetting the structure, isn't it? My heart feels. Anyway, minute starting now. Okay, guys, that's a minute up. Statement 4, we're moving on to I think. So when you're ready, that's our minute starting now. I think. Okay, that's that one finished. Statement number 5, a nice one now. I love. I love. Minute starting now. Okay, we're now on to I hate. I hate. Minute starting now. Okay, folks, that's that minute up. We're on to our final statement of this exercise. I hope. I hope. 1 minute starting now. Okay, guys, that's our minute up. Don't know about you, but I've produced an absolute scrawl. And yeah, I would say my head certainly feels lighter, kind of cleaner for it. I don't know, it's been a busy week, a busy day. Sometimes it's just nice to sort of declutter in a way, and I find that exercise very useful for doing so. So I hope it helped you guys too. We are going to move on now that we've sort of warmed up our minds, our hands a little bit, and head into our first exercise. So to begin with, I would like you to take a minute to choose a word, an emotion, I suppose, which sums up the kind of overarching feeling that you have had lately, over the past year, kind of throughout this whole crisis. Just one word, one emotion. I think, just for context, if it was me, I would probably find myself going for um, unsettled, maybe. I think unsettled has been a pretty consistent feeling for me. So just take a moment to think of a relevant word for yourselves. It's going to then influence the rest of our exercises to come. And once you have it, just make a note of it, either hold it in your head, jot it down on your page. We will be returning to it in a moment. So I'm just going to jot down unsettled on my page there. Okay, and once we've all done that, we're going to move on to one of my personal favorite poetic techniques, the kenning. Kenning, Kenning. They seem to be a workshop favorite. I'm not really sure why. I thought they were just a personal preference of my own, but it seems other people enjoy kennings too. Kennings are a great technique, often used in poetry for effect. A kenning is essentially the process of using a two-word phrase in the place of a one-word noun. So kennings, I believe, nobody has corrected me on this so far, but I think they first kind of appeared in Anglo-Saxon and Norse poetry. So Beowulf, the famous Anglo-Saxon poem, that contains a lot of kennings. For example, in place of the word body, this poem writes bone house. In place of sword, it uses battle light. In place of ship, it uses wave floater. And what is it? In place of sea, they use whale road. So you see the kennings are metaphorical phrases. Looking at those examples that I gave there, the body is not really a house, but it does provide a house for bones, therefore leading to bone house as the kenning used in the poem. Similarly, the sea is not really a road, but it does act as something for whales to travel upon, I suppose. Therefore, whale road becomes a nice kenning to use in place of sea. Kennings can be used to describe everyday people, things, objects. For example, tree. Tree could become birdhouse. It could become life giver. It could become leaf bearer, green giant. So you'll see we're using two word phrases, substituting for the one word noun. Essentially, kennings are they're child language, really. I think about how might a child describe something that they don't know the word for, and in doing that, you kind of lead yourself to the creation of a kenning. In my own writing, I find kennings to be a very useful technique to draw upon. I find myself having a tendency to become overly literal, I suppose, in my writing, being very focused on story and narrative and structure, and yes, ending up very literal, moving away from poesy. So even if I don't end up using the kennings that I will create in a kenning exercise, I find that by doing the exercise itself, I've learned to think differently, a bit more openly, a bit more creatively by the end of it. So for this exercise in kennings, we are going to use the following structure. We're going to write, don't call me, and then insert our emotion. So I could say, don't call me unsettled, call me, and then we're going to create a kenning. So that's don't call me, and insert the emotion that we chose, call me, and then our kenning will come. So let's say the emotion we'd chosen was anxious. We could write, don't call me anxious, call me fast thinker. Don't call me anxious, call me problem solver. Don't call me anxious, call me absent sleeper. Using kennings in this way, in this structure, I like because they're not intended to kind of diminish the negativity of the emotion. The kenning is rather it's reframing the emotion. It's encouraging us to take this emotion and view it freshly. Quite often seeing the real beauty actually that can lie in sort of darker feelings of fear and panic, because really those feelings in a way are our body's looking out for itself. And so in a way, those feelings really should be celebrated in the way that we celebrate more positive feelings, I think. So we're gonna take, let's see, maybe about 5, 6, 7 minutes to just create as many kennings as we can, all for that one emotion that we chose. So for me, I'll be trying to create kennings for the word unsettled. So as I say, it will be the sentence structure: don't call me, insert emotion, don't call me unsettled, call me, and then create as many kennings as we can. So I'd say maybe aim for 10. Be ambitious. Let's aim for 10 in about 5, 6 minutes. And then we will regroup and move on to our next exercise. So that's our 5 minutes or so, starting now. And I will let you know when we're just about done. Okay, guys, just a couple minutes more, maybe, on our kennings. Okay, folks, let's just wrap it up there. Um, I would love to hear any kennings that you have come up with. I've seen in the comments there, don't call me frazzled, call me compassion burnt. And I just think that is, yeah, it's beautiful. It's so visceral. I think, someone could say the word frazzled to me and yeah, it resonates. I can come up with my own sort of interpretation of what it feels like to be frazzled, but compassion burnt, there's something so unique and nuanced and just strong about that phrasing. I love it. And Kennings just have this brilliant ability to help us, I don't know, create stronger, fuller, more robust interpretations of familiar words or familiar sentiments, which I think is really beautiful. And I find them just a great technique for that purpose. So please, if you have come up with anything that you particularly liked there, either feel free to post it in the comments just now, or please do send it to me after the session, because I would absolutely love to hear what you came up with. We're going to move on to a next exercise now. This one is going to be an exercise in detail, I suppose. So in the same way that sorry, I just thought, don't call me anxious, call me extra analyzer. Yes. Oh, that resonates so much. That was certainly that was kind of the vein I was going down, kind of extra analyzer, overthinker, but sort of reframing it as something quite positive. I think it's good to overthink, to be invested in how we're feeling, to be invested in analysis. Anxious is such a loaded word. Extra analyzer is a very beautiful, very poignant spin on it. And don't call me confused, call me mind untangler. Yes, yes. It says that as a puzzle, a quest, and we're not sort of lost in confusion. We're just working through feelings. I love these. Thank you so much for sharing, everybody. Please do continue to do so. They're fantastic. So yes, okay. So the same way that Kennings encouraged us to take a familiar emotion, a familiar sentiment, and reframe it, view it afresh. This exercise will have us find, I suppose, newfound appreciation for something familiar, something that I find very effective in poetry or in writing more general, I suppose, is when a writer is able to jump between the immense and the minuscule. So they're able to talk about large topics, large themes, large ideas, but then home right in on the minute detail of something. I think I think we're living in a time when there is so much going on, so many big things going on that we're expected to tune into and have opinions on and converse about, to the extent that sometimes we forget to focus on the tiny things happening around us. And I mean, I suppose it's a small blessing that COVID and lockdown has brought, in that our worlds really have shrunk, and we are now much more tuned in to those little things around us. So for this exercise, we're going to concentrate on writing in the most intricate detail that we can. So I would like you to begin by picking an object around you that you can see. I might choose this mug, this big garish mug that I have. And I'd like you to write about it in detail, in the closest detail that you can. So I might find myself describing its color, its its kind of weight, the shape and texture of the mug, and then when you come across an appropriate word, so another noun possibly, I'd like you to switch your attention to that and begin applying the same process to it. So for me, I could focus on this bird here. So I'm describing the mug, I'm describing this woman that appears in it, I'm describing the kind of flowers and shapes. Then I reach the bird and I decide to switch my attention to the bird. Start describing it, what it looks like. Describe birds more generally, where they fly, how they fly. I might find myself thinking about bird song and then switch to that, describing how I imagine its song to be. It's essentially an exercise in appreciating small beauties, looking inwards rather than outwards to find beauty and to find interest and detail and strong topics for writing, to be honest. So again, 6, 7 minutes or so. I'll let you know when we are just about at time. Picking an object close to you, describing it in the closest detail that you can, shifting your focus where appropriate, and really just testing yourself to see how closely detailed you can go, how intricate, how small. So 5 to 7 minutes, starting now, and I will let you know when we are just about there. Okay, folks, let's just maybe take 1 to 2 minutes more on this one. Okay, everyone, let's wrap that up there. I would love to hear how you found that exercise. I find it quite funny actually. Sometimes I do exercises, this one included, and I enjoy it, but perhaps don't get that much from it apart from some nice vocabulary, some interesting adjectives. But on this occasion, it actually something kind of clicked for me, and I was describing this mug, and I was looking at this woman. I was let's see, I was sort of focusing on her face, describing her face, and then I realized how kind of thoughtful and focused and concentrated she looked. And I was trying to describe her expression and how there was something quite I don't know, something quite sad about it, something serene but a little poignant, a little sad, which made me think it looked like she was missing someone. Perhaps she was homesick, and then that kind of led me on to my own thoughts about the sort of separation that COVID has brought, and how much I have missed the family, the friends that I haven't seen for so long. And I think exercises are just they're so useful this way. Creative writing exercises, they can be fun and enjoyable in their own right, but they can also sort of trick you into things sometimes. They can lead you to topics, to stories that you want to tell that perhaps you didn't realize you want to tell until you stumbled across them. So they're very useful for opening your brain and getting the cogs turning and getting thoughts coming out. So I hope that either this time round or another time that you practice it, it can bring something of your own voice and your story to you. So we've got maybe two more exercises or so to work through today. This next exercise is one of my favorites. Simply because it's a playful exercise, it's a joyful exercise. It encourages a move away from the more kind of perfectionist part of your brain, I suppose, and pushes you into more abstract territory. I recently I've been writing to briefs and deadlines a lot. I've been writing with purpose and pressure, I suppose, more than a sense of enjoyment, which is sad. I've kind of temporarily lost the enjoyment of writing, and that is no good. So I thought I would include this exercise, which really is just focused on fun. So, first of all, you just want to start with a blank page. So you can open a new document on your computer, get out a pen and blank piece of paper, and write down. Normally, I would just say write down a word, but I think maybe for today, let's start by writing down the emotion that we chose: frazzled, anxious, unsettled. So we're going to just write that down. And then the hard part, write another word. It's hard because for this exercise to work, the second word must be completely random, must be completely disconnected from the first. So as to really anger that perfectionist writer in your head. Do it anyway. So I might write unsettled, toothpaste. Toothpaste, that seems a sufficiently random word. Toothpaste. And after you write your second random disconnected word, I would like you to write a third random disconnected word from the one that came before. So I might go unsettled, toothpaste, tree, I suppose. And then a fourth and a fifth, and so on. After you've written a few words, you can start a new line. It doesn't matter where you break the line, just whatever feels right. And just keep going for as long as you can in the 5 to 7 minutes that I will give you. This exercise is all about being playful. It's writing with how the words sound to you rather than what they mean. We're moving away from meaning. We can make up new words. We can try to come up with the most random nouns that we can. We can write down a list of 5 verbs and then chuck a noun in at the end and see how it sounds. We can avoid all punctuation unless punctuation sounds fun to you, in which case do include it by all means. And I just encourage people to spend anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes on this exercise, putting together as many random disconnected words and phrases as they can, and then returning to it and reading it aloud. And you will often be surprised by what you have created. But for now, we're just going to do the content generation itself. So 5, 6 minutes, as many random disconnected words, one after another as you can. And if anyone fancies sharing what they come up with after this, I'm always delighted. So let's give us, 5, 6 minutes or so, starting now. And as ever, I will let you know when we are nearing time. Okay, folks, let's just start finishing up there for the last 30 seconds or so. Okay. I don't know about you guys, but I find this exercise hard. It doesn't make sense to my brain to kind of work this way. I look at what I'm writing and I think these words, these words they don't work, they don't mean anything. But I find that the more that you push, especially when you give yourself more time to work through it, the more that you push, the more it starts to feel as though something has loosened, kind of inside your mind. For me, I find that I'm moving away from this reliance on sense, and instead, I'm interested in the strangely beautiful pairings of words that are created. I mean, for example, what I wrote a couple of lines: cactus orange, whispered owl, a curtain, comma, an open glass. That means nothing. I don't know what it means, but I do feel like there's a story somewhere in it, and I find that when you intentionally try to write badly, you actually end up freeing your creativity and making surprising connections that might lead you somewhere and might lead you into finding the voice that you want, finding the story that you want to tell. Sometimes, as with the last exercise, you kind of have to trick your um, overly literal, overly analytical brain into finding what it wants to tell. And one way or another, I think the exercise it brings out a sort of newly playful spirit in your writing that means that you can go back to whatever the work is that you're working on and approach it with a sort of new and revised level of creativity. So for the last 5 minutes or so that we have together, I would just like to look at free writing or free verse. So, if you don't know what free writing is, if you haven't encountered it before, it is essentially, as the name suggests, the most freeing type of writing. It is a type of writing where you don't have to think about spelling, punctuation, grammar. You don't have to think about being neat or clever or sophisticated. You just need to get your thoughts out, really. I suppose at heart, it is simply a way to write openly and honestly. It is the starting point for a lot of mindful expressive poetry because it allows us to tap directly into how we're feeling and get those feelings out onto the page, which in itself is a very cathartic process. And I think that free writing is a really nice way to finish workshops when we've been writing to one extent or another within different sets of restrictions or structures. So I'm just going to give us, the last 5 minutes maybe to free write our thoughts, just to end our hour together. And I would like you to maybe start, because sometimes it can be quite daunting actually to just be given a blank page and be told to write. Sometimes your brain starts shouting at you and just freezing up because you've not been given any sort of stimulus whatsoever. So how about we choose one of our kenning lines? So don't call me word, call me word. And yes, use that as our starting point, take it from there. And just allow your mind to kind of run riot and just write. Nobody's reading this, nobody's judging it. It's just a case of quantity over quality, just getting words, thoughts out down onto the page. If you do get stuck, I find it helpful to return to the sort of key question words of what, why, when, where, and who. Think about what the emotion, the experience is that you're describing. Why were you feeling that way? When were you feeling that way? Where were you when you were feeling that way? Who were you with? Who was involved in you feeling that way? And sometimes those words can just be enough to sort of restart, re-trigger something in your mind and get it running again. So we're just going to take from now until the end of our hour to free write as much as we can based on one of our chosen kenning lines, and then that'll be us. So start whenever you're ready, guys, and I will give you a little heads up when we're just about at the end of the session. Okay, folks, let's maybe just wrap up there. As ever, you can repeat these exercises in your own time, taking as much time as you need um, to spend on them and to complete them. But for now, that is us. Thank you so much for your attention and involvement this past hour. I actually can't believe how swiftly it has blown by. But I hope you have had fun playing around with words and creativity. As I mentioned at the start, please do feel free to send me any work, either um, the work that you generated throughout the session, or perhaps work that encountering these techniques leads you to then go and create. Please feel free to send it to me at any point. I'm always so open to reading work and um, giving feedback wherever it is desired or required. So you can reach me at my email address, Imogen Stirling poetry at gmail.com, or of course on any social media platform. I'm on almost all of them. But for now, thank you again for taking time to join the session. Enjoy the rest of your days and enjoy writing, enjoy creating. Thank you all.